This is Performance Anxiety on the Pantheon Podcast Network, and I am your host, Mark. Brian McSweeney and Shawn Rios from MIIRRORS were kind enough to join me for this episode. They began the band as a duo, taking their time, writing music together, and slowly making this into a very unique project. Brian and Shawn recount how they met on a plane and bonded over the second MIIRRORS album. They were both working with different bands, but there was definitely something there. When they finally had the opportunity to play together, they realized it was something special. When they expanded the band to include Dmitry Rakuba, they knew they really had to give this some serious attention. And everything solidified with the addition of Andre Miller and Patrick Riley. But with most of the songs already written, they set about the task of figuring out how to play them live with several extra people in the band. But they documented it, and hopefully will be releasing that soon. Their debut album, Motion Pictures, is crazy catchy without having solos, because they approached the album's writing, arranging, and even sequencing like they were writing a movie. Their first single was a cover of a Jeff Buckley demo, Gunshot Glitter. They even had Jeff's drummer Matt Johnson playing on it, so you know it's good. You have to check these guys out. Follow them on Instagram at MIIRRRORS_music. That's MIIRRORS. And MIIRRRORS on Bandcamp. Look for upcoming tours and more info on the way. And follow us at Performance ANX on the socials. Merchandise is at performanceanx.threadless.com, or send us a coffee at ko-fi.com/performanceanxiety. And now prepare to be blown away by Brian and Shawn from MIIRRRORS on Performance Anxiety, part of the Pantheon Podcast Network.
Yeah, sure. This is Brian from MIIRRRORS, and this is performance. Wait, let me think about this. I was gonna say I have performance anxiety, but maybe it's too on the nose. This is Brian from MIIRRRORS, and you're listening to Performance Anxiety. Shawn?
This is Shawn from MIIRRRORS, and you're listening to the. Hold on one second. This is Shawn from MIIRRRORS, and you're listening to the Performance Anxiety Podcast. Yeah,
that's probably fine.
I mean, it's up to you. What do you think?
I mean, like you said, the whole podcast is promoting the album, so I think we're good.
I've been getting myself a little drink to clear my throat, and it's not working. I got a little, it's like 2 fingers of Bullet, and I decided to throw in a little bit of Chambord because my daughter's boyfriend got us some Chambord for Christmas, and we haven't used it too much, so I was like, let me see what that does.
No, it's actually a nice move, man. We did that when I worked at this bar for a long time.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that was the employee shifty. That was the drink.
Well, I'll tell you what I'm waiting to open up. I haven't opened it yet, but I'm dying to. Is
going on?
Black Rebel Motorcycle Club.
What is that?
Where's that from?
It's from Few Distilleries. They did it in conjunction with Black Rebel Motorcycle Club, and I haven't tried it yet. I'm dying.
And that's cool.
Few is so good.
Oh yeah. Well,
Few is amazing.
I've had Pete and Leah from BRMC on, and I was trying to ply Robert with a tasting as a reason to come on the podcast, and he hasn't responded yet, so we'll see.
We're big fans of that band. Like they're wonderful.
Oh, they're amazing, and Pete and Leah are the sweetest people on the planet. They're just so nice. They're one of the first people I had on the podcast, so I was kind of really blown away.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's actually, I'll tell you this real quick to kind of break the ice a little bit. So I reached out, several years ago. Leah was diagnosed with Chiari malformations in her brain, and she had to have brain surgery. Wow. And then she had to do this whole recovery to almost kind of relearn how to play drums again. And
no shit.
Yeah. So I reached out to her on Twitter, and I was like, I don't know if you get these messages or anything, but if you're interested, I love the band and I would love to learn about the recovery. I hung in and watched on social media your whole, the surgery, the recovery, everything. But I wanted to know how everything's going. I want to know more about it, what happened, all about it.
Yeah, I like that.
And she reached out. It was like, I didn't hear anything for like 3 months. I kind of figured I'd never, ever hear anything. But she reached out and she's like, yeah, I'd love to. Let's do it. So I set it up and I'm about to record. And she's like, hey, Pete's here. Yeah, would you mind if he hopped on? I'm like, yeah, okay.
That's cool.
Yeah. So all of that being said, I am so thrilled to have you guys on. I've been listening to the album and it's killer. I love it. It's infectious. I love the whole sound and the feeling through the whole album. It's fantastic.
Thank you. That's awesome. Thank you. We really, we were happy to finally, button it up and we're happy to share it with the world.
Well, what I want to find out is how you guys got into music in the first place. I like to connect the dots from what happened early on to get you into music to the most recent release and what you're doing now. So, and I guess, Brian, we'll start with you. What really impacted you early on in music? Was it stuff that family was playing, or was it something you found on your own?
My mom and dad were in a Southern gospel quartet. I grew up in West Virginia.
Oh, wow.
And there was a lot of bluegrass music around. And it was my mom and dad and then my dad's parents. And they had a regional kind of family gospel band. They made 4 albums. They had a van with their name and their logo airbrushed on the back of it.
Oh, nice.
And I remember I was on their albums when I was maybe 2 and 3 years old. I was in recording studios singing on their albums and singing in churches. I remember that stuff. My toys were instruments, some real, some play. So music was just always around. And I think when I really started, my first memory of really making it my own was when we were on a long drive in my dad's old Ford, what were those? Mustang, a canary yellow Mustang to Florida. We were on a road trip with the family to Florida and they were listening to Neil Diamond. And I remember harmonizing to Neil Diamond, the jazz singer. We would listen to that album in its entirety several times all the way to Florida and back from West Virginia. Yeah, that was the first time I remember thinking about it and understanding harmonies. And then from there, it was, I think the first band I was ever in, the first time I ever played with other people was at a 7th grade. Is that right? 7th? Yeah, it was a 7th grade kind of a dance it was just my band played in the gym and a bunch of people came. I'm not sure.
Oh, yeah, so you had a band in 7th grade already?
I mean, not really. We just learned a handful of songs. It was like a bunch of guys who learned a handful of songs and we played one time. That's not true. We played a few times, but
sounds like a 7th grade.
And then from there,
group.
You just like get into it, keep doing it, hopefully get better, keep practicing. And
all right, so I have one question for you before we move on. Where in West Virginia? Because I live in Winchester, so I'm like right on the West Virginia border.
Okay, it's Huntington, West Virginia.
Okay, I'm familiar.
So it's the southwest part of the state.
Yeah, that's like the exact opposite of where I'm at. I'm up on the border of northeast West Virginia.
By the Panhandle. Yeah, you're on the opposite part of the state. I'm right by Kentucky and Ohio, or was when I was growing up.
Right. All right. Okay. All right. So, Shawn, what about you? What made an impact on you early on, and how did you get into playing music?
I think the best part, the part where I win, is that my brother is 10 years older than me, and my stepbrother Steve is 5 or 6 years older than me. And my cousins were all about 5 or 6 years older than me. But the best part about all that is that none of them like the same music.
Oh, cool.
And yeah, so while I would be with my cousins every single Friday and Saturday, they'd be into 80s, pop, new wave, a lot of new wave stuff, Thompson Twins, Culture Club.
Oh, nice.
A lot of George Michael. But then at the same time, whenever I was with my mom, we'd listen to soul records. Just because we had a record player, a lot of soul and disco from my mom. So I got into black music.
Man, moms are good for soul and disco. That's
I know
stuff.
I know. I was talking with my brother about just that. But also, at the same time, my brother was playing me 3 records specifically: Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon, Paranoid by Black Sabbath, and Led Zeppelin 4. and then hanging out with Steve. Steve was into the cool kid music. He was going to Berlin. He was going to the clubs. He was going to Medusa's and Smart Bars. So he was into like Susie and the Banshees, all the 4AD bands, My Bloody Valentine, Bauhaus, New Order, all of that. Depeche Mode, 101, like all that stuff, man.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, I figured out at 9 years old that was something that I wanted to participate in. That I actively wanted to spend a big part of my life participating in that. I didn't know what that meant, but I did know that it was drums, and it was at that point that I decided that I would pursue that, but I didn't have my first drum kit, and I wasn't like in a band until I was 16.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was kind of pretending to think I was going to be a visual artist for my life.
I understand that one. I pretended to do that for like 30 years. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors. Before you skip over this ad, give me 1 minute. Like most podcasts, I pick sponsors carefully, and I use the products that advertise here. Pure Spectrum CBD is a product that has been really beneficial for me. They have a wide variety of great products that can be used on a daily or as needed basis. I've been using the tincture every day, and it's been wonderful for easing anxiety. And I absolutely love the isolate. I use it instead of acetaminophen or ibuprofen, and it's worked so well for the relief of aches and pains. They also have soaks, lotions, salves, gummies, and more, plus an entire line for fitness recovery. They even have products for your pets. See everything they offer at purespectrumcbd.com. And if you have questions, they're there to help. They helped me when I had no idea where to start. After you fill your cart, use code PERFORMANCEANX for 15% off your purchase. Pure Spectrum CBD, Pure Spectrum CBD, Pure Spectrum CBD.
Yeah, and that's what I did for a long. I was an illustrator for a long time, but it wasn't. I should have went to music school.
Oh, man.
So I was always very shy and insecure about my place in music, and all of my learning has been through sort of absorption of records and watching people do it and being a visual learner, not by someone teaching me, although it was in the early, it's like 2004, 2005 when I started taking a couple lessons with our friend Matt Johnson. And he was the first person to actually sit down and go over conceptual things with me, going over technical, but really thinking of your body, of your limbs, your breath being a fifth limb, and how you breathe indicates the way that you're able to carry your posture and carry out what you play and really allow yourself to be free. So that was, but I'm really going way off, man. But that's,
no, that's fine. That's what I love about doing this podcast. And I may subtitle this one "MIIRRORS and Their Fifth Limb."
Oh, God. That could be really horribly.
It's a new album title. We get canceled for.
Right.
Can't have it, man.
No, that's
so
really
funny.
fantastic.
Article title, yeah.
Can you imagine, dude? Can you imagine MIIRRORS and their fifth limb? So bad.
That would be really amazing. Good, I would buy that.
So bad.
I would definitely buy that, or read it, or whatever it is.
Yeah, you would. Yeah, you'd get it.
Yeah,
you'd subscribe.
I would for sure. So, how did the two of you meet?
Shawn.
we met on an airplane.
We go back and forth.
Probably 22 years ago, something like that.
On an airplane.
We were on the back of a flight to Atlanta for different reasons, and it was a very empty flight. He sat behind me with his Sony Walkman. I noticed this guy with a beanie cap. I'm like, who is this guy? He's wearing all black like I am. And he tapped me on the shoulder some later in the flight, too. It wasn't like right when we got on. And I think I was just trying to relax and take a nap or something. And I looked behind and he gave me these headphones and he said, listen to this. So I did.
That's so random.
Yeah. And it wound up, and I'm not going to pronounce the name of the song because I can't. So with respect to the song, it was Sigur Ros's first big, it's weird to say hit. They don't make hit, but you know what I mean? It was their big hit. It was the big.
It's like whatever wasn't it like whatever was the first track on the album?
Yeah. Yeah, it was the first track on that record. It was on the Vanilla Sky soundtrack, which kind of caught a lot of people's ears at that point for them when they were coming out. And I was like, well, I've never heard this before. And I'm just thinking to myself, this guy must be pretty cool if this is the kind of music that he's into. And we exchanged information. And you know, Brian has said before, we really spent time in each other's orbits in different ways. And he was in a band that I began to really admire once I found out who they were, became a big fan, and then got to know the band. And, you know, later on when Brian and I were friends, I got to play with them.
So is that Matthew?
Yeah, that was Matthew.
Yeah.
Okay. That's cool stuff, man. I listened to that. I like that.
Awesome. Fun.
I am a fan. I still am a fan.
Yeah, it's definitely different from MIIRRORS, but it's, you know, I can actually hear a little bit of a connection. I mean, maybe it's just the way Brian writes and sings, but I can definitely hear like almost an embryonic MIIRRORS in some of what you guys did in Matthews. So, and I also liked the song you did on the Prayer Chain tribute, Bendy Line. That was really cool.
Wow. Where in the world did you find that?
Yeah, I do my research.
That was a long time ago. Wow.
That's really good. I like that. And to be fair,
where did you find it? Is it up on Spotify?
No, there's
That'd be cool if it was.
I don't know, because I don't listen to music through Spotify. I just listen to podcasts through Spotify.
Okay.
But
Gotcha.
I do a lot of research through Discogs, and you'd be surprised at how many.
No shit, man.
Yeah, you'd be surprised at how many McSweeneys there are on Discogs, but you're definitely one of them. And
Interesting.
That Prayer Chain tribute album is up on there, and then I found the video on YouTube.
Okay. Awesome. That's cool.
So it's definitely up there. And I wasn't
that's one of
familiar
my
with Prayer
favorite
Chain.
songs, man. Prayer Chain was like, they were a band who was technically they were on a Christian label, and they all came from like Christian homes. But there was this scene like in the mid to late 90s where there were a lot of bands that like legitimately were really solid bands that weren't cheesy. But the Prayer Chain particularly, like they had that song was on an album called Mercury, and it was like their last full album of original music. There was like a supplemental album that came out after that had some B-sides and stuff. But the album Mercury, I'll go back now and like, honestly, what it really sounds like is it sounds like Smashing Pumpkins Gish. Like that was what was really the thing at the time. And you can tell that's who they wanted to be. But listen to, you know, I guess Mercury, but their first album was called Shawl, Shawl.
Okay.
And it sounds like a precursor to Gish.
Oh, wow.
But the Prayer Chain, that album is just, to this day, I mean, it's probably one of my top 10 favorite albums.
Wow.
It's just like such a masterpiece of an album. Every song is a 10, every single song, and every song puts you in a different visual space, and every song feels different and is very unique, but every song on that album is a 10. And it's just like such a crime that band just broke up and never, I mean, they should have been on Atlantic Records or on Virgin Records. They should have been an international. Yeah, they should have been superstars.
Definitely check that out, because that's the kind of stuff that I love. The first couple of Smashing Pumpkins albums are two of my favorites of all time by anybody. So
same here.
Yeah.
So when did you guys start playing together? So Brian, you were in Matthew doing your thing, and I don't know how long that lasted. So you guys were obviously staying in touch, but when did you guys start to actually play together?
Well, I had left Chicago. I was in Chicago. I moved there when Matthew was a band. I was there. It was from 99 to probably 2007. And Matthew kind of fell apart around 2005, I'd say. We got dropped from Ryko Disc, and one of the members quit. And to be completely honest with you, we lost faith in ourselves. We were on tour in Europe. We got dropped from the label at the end of a tour. We found out on the flight on the way home. On the same flight, one of our band members quit. And it was a really rough time. And we tried. We wrote a second album, the larger part of a second album that we recorded kind of in demo form, but it was never released.
Oh, wow.
And the band just kind of fizzled out. So I was living out of the state. I was living away. And in 2014, my now wife, I met her in Nashville, was living there. And she got into graduate school in Chicago at University of Chicago.
Okay.
And I started coming back up with her, and all my friends from the previous time I had lived in Chicago pretty much had moved to the suburbs, started families. Yeah. And Shawn and I we'd stayed in touch over the years. And one of the first times I came up for an extended trip, I was just like, hey man, why don't we get together and play? Why don't we just hang out and play? And Shawn was playing music with a few different artists at the time. He had a rehearsal space that he was sharing. So his gear was set up. And I think I took the Metro to the Blue Line, and you picked me up, and we went to your rehearsal space. And we just, I didn't even have any equipment at the time. I had sold a lot of my stuff. I just played a guitar and an amp that were at his space that belonged to someone else. And we wrote a ton of ideas that day. And I would say probably 3 of which are on the MIIRRORS album.
Oh, wow.
So that was about 2015, I'd say, that we started playing with some regularity.
And we wild.
Took it pretty slow, for a very long time, we were just playing for the fun of it. When we, and before we even, we knew we really liked what we were doing, but it took a little while before we started to imagine that this could work. We started doing some recording sessions in Chicago, pretty much just the 2 of us, and moving forward with these songs with no real solid vision of, we had ideas. We kind of share some aesthetic sensibilities, and we were moving this amorphous thing down the field in the same direction. And kind of the goal was just to keep the ball moving. Okay. And we just thought if we don't stop, then it'll figure itself out.
And it seems to have figured itself out. So MIIRRORS started off as a duo then. When did
we actually played a few shows as a duo.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we did.
And was it like all the original stuff that you're playing? Because the first single off the album is a Jeff Buckley cover, which is incredible. And we'll get into that in a second. But
yeah, that came way later. It was pretty much all original stuff.
It was even some stuff that Brian had been working on his own beforehand too. It was some stuff that wound up not being MIIRRORS, but it was still Brian McSweeney. It was just some
it was just stuff that I was writing that would come out later, subsequently on an album that I put out under my name. But at the time, it was just like stuff. It was just like, let's play whatever we have.
Okay, because I wanted to ask you about that, because I did see some videos for Firefly, Destroyer, Stockholm, The Good News.
Those are great videos.
Stockholm, I love Stockholm.
Let's drink in the sky and all that surrounds the sights and the sounds, intoxicating. Let's move to the sea.
That's
so good.
Just killer. So was it that kind of stuff, or was it others songs?
No, it was more acoustic stuff. I put an album out at the end of 2016 called As the Bluebird, and it's largely acoustic at its core, acoustic vocal. I mean, there are instruments on it, but it's, to be audacious, I would say it has an Elliott Smith kind of vibe. You know, that's really what I was inspired by and kind of, you know, using as a model at the time.
I tried to build a house upon a wall where no one lived, where no one lived at all.
So, you know, as a two-piece, when Shawn and I were playing, it was some of the more up-tempo songs weren't completely out of line with some of the MIIRRORS songs. You know, one song might be electric, one song might be acoustic.
Yeah.
But it was in the realm of stuff that could exist together in a set.
Okay. When did the band start to flesh itself out as a five-piece? Because you also have Andre Miller, Patrick Riley, and Dimitri. I'm going to butcher this. Is it Rakuba?
Yeah, you got it.
Oh, man, that's lucky. That one was lucky. How did the rest of the band come to be part of MIIRRORS?
Early on, I wanted to be in a band with Brian, but I wasn't sure. I really didn't think that was ever going to happen. But I always thought to myself what that would look like if I did have a band with him. And I remember a person in Wheaton that played in another band, and that band would play with Brian, with Matthew, and with Brian solo. And that was very early on, and I would go to those shows. And I remember seeing Dimitri in this other band called Scarecrow Garden. They were really, really wonderful at the time. Their record was really good.
Oh, cool.
And I ran into him when I was married. I was with my wife backstage at Concord Music Hall in Chicago. And I saw a stagehand. I looked over and it was Dimitri working the venue.
Oh, wow.
And hey, man, and this was very early on. This was pretty quick after Brian and I started playing together. And I said, hey, I'm starting at this thing with McSweeney. We got some songs. It's kind of interesting. You should really come by the space and check it out. And Dimitri did. And immediately we knew that Dimitri was a person of interest for us.
Right.
He showed up extremely fucking late. We were so tired. And when he started playing, we realized that he could play really wonderful guitar in a way that I hadn't heard. And he can also play really wonderful piano. He had a good feel for like key voicings. So that was interesting. It's like, oh shit. I always knew he was a badass, but I didn't know to what degree. And it was through that time, it was the three of us for a while. We played three shows as a duo. We played three shows as a trio with Dimitri. And then we've done so far, I think now we're entering our fifth or sixth show as a full quintet.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors. Still feeling out the live presence, I guess?
It's coming together. We've been working it out for a handful of years now, and it took, the process of writing this album, because, again, a lot of these songs started from the place of like a two-piece. And Shawn and I would go into the studio and record the bones and kind of get that stuff ready. And then we would have Dimitri play some overdubs. And then, like, there's a friend of mine who was actually he was the bass player in Matthew. He's just like one of the most incredible musicians. And he played some bass on the album. And as we were building this stuff, Andre came along and we started playing. That was kind of slow going. And then at some point we were just like, you know what, this is a priority. We have to play live. We've got to get this stuff down. And we started learning the parts.
Okay.
And we had people in the room learning stuff that they didn't necessarily write. And maybe they did play a part, and I edited it to create something that didn't exist before in Pro Tools, just to make like some sweeping reverb part or a texture or something. Regardless, we're figuring out how to play this stuff, and it took a little while.
Yeah.
But now we turned a corner when, pretty much I'd say, when Patrick started playing with us a few years ago, where we've been writing faster than we've ever written before, just with the 5 people in the same room. We've got the better part of a second album written at this point.
Oh, wow.
And the new stuff is definitely, it's inspiring. But the writing, and yeah, we are working it out live, and the live stuff, the more new music we write, the more the live set is kind of coming together, because as we're playing the new stuff, we're writing it all together. So there really is no like going back and trying to figure out who's going to do what on this part. It's like, you just play the part that you wrote. And,
okay.
And we're very critical with our writing in the room. So once it's done, it's done. You know, we write for impact for every part of the song. And the first time that happened was Sinistry, that we all kind of wrote together. And I think you can feel that in the recording.
Repetition, turn it into a commission. Eyes wide, we tell you that we see it, but we don't. Yeah, but we
don't. You know, our goal is that the arrangements are very impactful, and all of the hard work is done in the writing. And once that's there, you know, bringing that to life is really, it's already done. The hard work is already done.
Sinistry is one of the songs that grew on me as the more I listened to the album. I mean, I liked it, but the more I listened to it, the more I like it. And I think I accidentally emailed you that note today. So I was trying to make
it encouraging, man. It was inspiring.
Oh, good. You know, out of context, you just never know how somebody's going to take that kind of thing. It's like, oh, so you didn't like it at first, and now it's going on.
Well, it's good to know that the people that you're going to be talking with are into the music. That really helps when the people that you're going to be talking with like the music that you're going to be talking about.
I hope so. And yeah. I wanted to find out a little bit about the first single you guys did. It's a very unusual single, and you chose to do a Jeff Buckley cover from a song off his posthumous album, Sketches from My Sweetheart the Drunk. You guys did Gunshot Glitter, which was unfinished. It's a great demo for Jeff Buckley, but that was ambitious to choose, and you guys crushed it. It's, to me, and I don't want this to sound weird, but it definitely sounds like a direction Jeff could have taken the song. You know, you can't say one way or another what he was going to do with it. It's just a demo, but it definitely sounds like a legitimate direction that it could have gone, and it's so incredible. The vocals, the music is just amazing. It's got a mix of that really raw guitar sound that he had on the demo, and a lot more polished parts too. It's a really wild mix. I absolutely love it.
I'm really glad that you listened to it at the depth that you did, because you specifically noted the same guitar sound that was in that 4-track recording. That was something that was extremely intentional with Brian and myself, the way that we were like, we would play that recording over and over, like, let's mimic that. Let's get that as close as possible. Brian's really good at that. Brian's good at hearing something and figuring out how it's made and dissecting it and technically kind of recrafting it. And man, there's that one break when he's singing and it's just the guitar.
Yep.
Or it goes into the chorus, and it's just so fucking good.
It really is.
Brian did that. His vocals, that was the first take that was the first take.
Whoa.
And in drums, it was the same way. The drums and the bass. The drums, the bass, and the singing. Brian played bass. Brian sang. Matt Johnson played drums. And that was all done, in the first take. The vocals were recorded separately. He was just walking around Studio B at Electrical with an SM57 and just pushing it against his mouth and just pouring it out of him. And it worked.
Wow.
Yeah, it was cool.
Did you guys know Matt before? I know, Shawn, you'd mentioned it a little earlier in the podcast. How did you guys get him involved in it? Was he happy to do it, or was he kind of like, I don't know?
No, we were afraid of the latter. We were afraid that he would have some reservations because of the content.
Yeah.
And that was something, Brian and I very early on had couple dinners, couple drinks, figuring that out, knowing how to ask and how to even shape it to him so he can understand that, we don't want to kind of bastardize something that is sacred. But then after talking with him and after more conversation and making the music with him, there was nothing sacred. It's not a sacred cow. It's not a thing to, It is Jeff, but we are such lovers of his music that we thought it'd be really fun to creatively imagine a completed version. Like, what if we finished the song, so to speak?
Right.
And like, how dare we say that? But at the same time, doing so makes you exercise. You just really take the time to take yourself out of it and really go from your perspective to his. What would Jeff do?
Well,
and I think Matt was really helpful with that too. He had some thoughts on it. In fact, Brian, what did he tell you afterwards about working on that song with him? Didn't he say something to you? We talked about it recently.
Yeah, when we were working it out in the room, I remember him saying, like, Jeff wouldn't have wanted to be precious about it. He would have said, like, fuck it. Just let's throw whatever at the wall. Let's see what happens, just the most important thing, like, let's just have fun with it. Let's just make it real, make it feel good. And afterwards we were hanging out, having some drinks and having some tacos at the end of that day. And Matt said, he was like, man, I'm so happy with the way this turned out. Jeff would have loved this.
Oh,
Jeff
wow.
would have been so proud of this. And it was like one of those moments, like, wow, I could probably just be done making music now and it would be okay.
Right.
Seriously, like, not many people get an opportunity to to have that kind of validation.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, he was one of my favorite artists, like one of the most fundamental artists for me and one of the most meaningful periods of my musical journey as far as growth and crafting what I still value today.
Your vocals, you're one of the only people that I've heard that can do justice to a Jeff Buckley song. There's
Thanks, man.
Jimmy Necco, and that's all I can think of right off the top of my head. Maybe Stephen David McKellar. That's about it. Is there a reason you picked Gunshot Glitter over some of the other songs? Because I have heard you do a few other songs on those Jeff Buckley tribute nights.
Yeah.
Morning Theft and I Like Wine.
Sure.
Time takes care of the wounds, so I can't believe you had so much to give you thought I couldn't see. Gifts were boot heels to crush, promises to see. I had to send it away to bring us back again.
Shawn presented the idea, and it was a really great idea. It's just a song that we both had discussed before, and we both just really liked that song. I remembered when Sketches came out.
Each other, we liked that song. That's what was cool about it. Both of us liked it in the late 90s on our own. We discovered it, and it's at the time, it was really rare. Go ahead, Brian.
Mm-hmm. We both really liked it, and it was a rare track, and we thought, wow, it would be cool to try to, like, would it be too insulting to try to, like, finish it? Like, why not? You know, and another thing was like when it came out, I mean, now it's a different story. Now I'm pretty sure you could find it out there, but you know, when it came out for like over a decade, at least a decade, it was only on the Japanese import version of the B-side disc of Sketches. So if you bought Sketches in the United States or like any other country besides Japan, it was an invisible song, you know?
Yeah.
I just found the Japanese import in the import section of a record store in Texas. And I noticed I had an extra song. I'm like, what the fuck? Yeah. So I bought it. That was another thing. We just thought, well, nobody even knows this song. So that'd be kind of a lower stakes way to do it.
We're not on like The Voice or American Idol covering Hallelujah for the 530th time, you know?
Exactly.
And still one of my favorite songs of all time and favorite recordings of all time. It's not a knock on that. It's just, it's been beat to the ground a little bit, you know?
Exactly. Whenever you hear somebody say they love Jeff Buckley, that's the song they pull out. So.
Yeah, that's the song. Yeah.
Not Dream Brother.
The Nag Champa mix.
The mix. That's right. It's a little strange.
That is a little weird.
Those like those reverby little echoes they have when the top
it looks like some incense, man, and put a rug on the wall.
It is so Nag Champa.
One of the things that's really interesting about the album, and we'll mention the title, Motion and Pictures, just so everybody knows what to look for. You don't start off, although Gunshot Glitter was the first single, that's not the opening track.
No.
But I love the opening track. Parallax is, I think it's my favorite track on the album right now.
Really? That's the first idea that we wrote.
Really? I love how it builds.
So it only felt right to have it as the first song on the record. Just has it has a real chapter one kind of feel to it. Prelogue, maybe even. You know, it does. It really does. And you can hear it.
People are going to hear that memo.
I know. Look out, son. Floater.
No, that's not blood on my teeth. Just coming here off the street into the place where we eat. You'll do it forever. You'll soldier on and on with a pocket of.
But yeah, it's really beautiful track, and it has this. It really sets this sort of cinematic tone, for lack of a better word. That can sound pretentious, but it really does. It has like this beginning of a movie type of feeling to it. And that lends to the overall theme of motion and picture, of the music having a bit of like a film depth in that you can see the music.
Yes.
And that's really hard to do. We're still figuring that out.
The way I was thinking about this was I was listening to Matthew today at work and then went into MIIRRORS, and it sounds like MIIRRORS is Matthew, but Matthew's seen some shit now.
Oh, wow. That's a good way to put it.
And Matthew's matured a bit. So Matthew's gotten a little darker. And that's one of the things I really liked about it, is the darker, more mature sound of it. There's not guitar solos. In fact, I'm hard pressed to find an actual, guitar solo. It's the songwriting and the music that the musicianship that hooks me and keeps me in, and not a fleeting guitar solo somewhere that I'm like, oh, that's a cool effect. It's the whole song.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the only time that we had a solo in the record, for the record, the only time we ever had a solo was on the bridge of the song Knockoff in the middle of the record. And the great thing about that, it's not really a solo. It's actually Dimitri in the control room with Brian, given multiple opportunities to try something really different outside of the typical solo role. But Dimitri's a badass guitar player. He has licks to begin with, but he doesn't really express those in this type of a band. But it was the only time when he kind of let it fly. But what we did is we actually recorded him twice. And we took both solos and equally put them on top of each other.
Oh, wow.
And we thought, let's make that interesting. Let's do something with that. That was Brian's idea.
That is amazing.
And it's like essentially, you call it a guitar solo, but it's essentially just like two notes played frantically.
Exactly.
Wow.
Like Neil Young, playing the A.
It's more about the expression of the note than it is about shredding.
It's MIIRRORS' version of Cinnamon Girl solo.
Exactly. It's Neil Young playing the fucking A.
Yeah. So the song for me that competes with Parallax the most for my favorite is Fields and what is the full title of that one? I only wrote down
Fields and Forests.
Fields and Forests. Thank you.
That was one of the first songs we wrote too.
Really?
A voice is saying there's something to see. And the heavens open up around us, showing everything I don't understand. You say one day I'm gonna know my name.
Man, I love your early
I
stuff.
think didn't we come up with both of those ideas in the first day?
I think we did. That means that we had 4 ideas from that first day on the record, because we also have, what is it? Give? Well, no, Give's not on the record.
That's not on the album. Yeah. Spasmatic.
That's it. Spasmatic.
Spasmatic.
We have a lot of
Fields
other
and
material.
Parallax.
We have a lot of material that didn't make the cut,
Man.
which is interesting. Yeah.
So, all right.
Yeah.
So on that note, you guys started putting stuff out right before was it before the pandemic? Just before the pandemic? When
3 months.
Yep.
Was that one of the reasons why you guys spent a lot of time on the album and put out, one single at a time before putting out an entire album and not playing a whole lot of live shows? Was it because of the pandemic or was it on purpose?
It was both.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's fair.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, obviously the pandemic put everything, really hampered everything, but we didn't stop. It also kind of coincided with where we were in our journey. We were really turning a corner into like the 75%, 75 to 85% mark as far as completion of the album. And a lot of stuff, overdubs, vocals, I just did in my studio at home. And that was around the time that we thought we gotta start playing. Like, we gotta learn this stuff. And when this pandemic is over, people are gonna be out there getting after it, and we gotta be ready. So Shawn came up with the idea to do like a live recording, a live documentation of kind of where we were at that time with the songs. And honestly, we were playing like the songs that we could play at that point.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Those were the songs that we possibly could play. Because like I said, like some of the members came along. One of Patrick didn't play very much on this first album at all. He joined the band much later. So as we were learning how to play this stuff, we recognized that once the pandemic's over, we're going to need to know this stuff. So we had some rehearsals. We really dug in. We started hashing through the stuff. And it was Shawn's idea to make a video that will be out soon. You've seen Sinistry, the live version of that possibly is from that live session.
Oh, okay.
I think we recorded 6 songs in that session. And I sincerely think that at that time, those were the only 6 songs that we could play.
Oh, wow. Well, that version of Sinistry is what really flipped the switch on that song for me. I heard that. I'm like, okay, it really started to click. And then I went back and listened to it live a couple of times on the way home today from work. And I was like, all right, this song's really, really growing on me.
Yeah, it sounds, the live version sounds caffeinated.
Yeah, it does. Well, that's a good, so that's a good point. Before we get into that, I do want to mention that a lot of the songs start off kind of subtly, like Parallax and Fields, but the subtlety kind of doesn't, it's subtle, unlike the song that follows it, Knockoff, which scared the shit out of my wife when we were listening to it in the car the other day.
Oh, good.
We were listening to it all of a sudden.
That was kind of the point. We wanted it to be a 1-2 punch.
Oh, it's amazing. I love that kind of stuff. That song is definitely a bit of a departure from the rest of the album.
That's an old Brian demo.
Is it? Oh, man.
Before MIIRRORS, it was long before it became officially MIIRRORS. It was something that Brian had passed on to me. Well, he passed on to me during MIIRRORS, but he created it long, long before that.
I love that.
Yeah, the bass player that I told you, the bass player that that played on some of the stuff on our album, he and I used to live across the hall from each other in Chicago years ago.
Okay.
And we would get together and make music. And I think that was honestly an idea that came from a period where we were both super into the Gorillaz. I think it was like right around when their first album came out.
Okay. Yeah.
And we were just making some beats and writing, and that melody, like the bass, like the main melody of the song came from the bass player, Adrian.
Oh.
And I always loved it. And it just worked. I thought when Shawn and I started playing, it's like, well, this is a really cool idea. Why don't we try it? Why don't we see what it sounds like with drums? And I do think it's a bit of a departure, but I think at the same time, it really works on the album. I think it really fills a hole that would have been there without it.
Yeah, I can see that. And I love that squeaky sax.
The Barry sax.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is incredible.
My friend Paul in Nashville, who played that, he's such a good guy. He plays with a ton of artists in Nashville, and he's just such a great dude. He's been texting me for like the last several years. Like, dude, when are you gonna put that music out? And I just like 3 days ago, I sent him the link to that song. I'm like, here you go, man, check it out.
Oh, nice.
He's like, oh, dude, this makes my Friday.
Oh, that is awesome. That is awesome.
He's so good. And you know what's so fun? It's like, it's so hard when you're working with very trained musicians. It can be very hard when you're working with very trained musicians to get them to do something unconventional, because it feels so wrong. And to say, you know what, I want you to play a dissonant note on the strings and make it sound eerie and creepy. One note for 5 minutes. That's what we're going for here. And like, it's almost like they can't do it. They can play Paganini, but they can't do that.
Yeah.
Because everything in them says that's wrong.
Right.
That's bad, But I was like, Paul, we want you to make this sound like a person is screaming through your saxophone. And he's like, yeah, man, got it. And he just crushed it.
Oh, that is awesome. I love hearing that stuff.
Brian wanted Ornette Coleman.
I do have a question about the songwriting, because to me, the drums are so prominent in this album. And it feels to me, to my untrained non-musician ear, that the songs are kind of built around the drumming, that it's not a riff that you guys have come up with. It's the drums, and then the song kind of takes shape around that. Is that the case at all?
Yeah, no, that's a very fair assessment. There's been a lot of songs, even including a lot of our new material, where the music is written around the drums.
Okay.
And it's interesting. Brian is he's a very good drummer. He's very rhythmic. He takes things, everything he does, he takes things with syncopation where the one is, tempo being even. It's extremely important in what we do together, that we really lock in. So yeah, rhythm is so great to have a singer, a writer, a lyricist who always takes consideration that the rhythm that has to take place whenever that moment's being made, that's up, front and center.
It shines throughout the whole album. And it makes the songs feel complete. You know, it's not just, hey, I came up with this cool riff, let's write something around it. So
yeah.
It's solid.
Well, I mean, I think it goes back to, thank you. I think it goes back to, that was the start of our sound.
I agree.
Writing as a two-piece. To me, you don't need a bass when you're writing. You need rhythm, you need melody, and you need a pad, whether that's a guitar or a keyboard or whatever. So my guitar, when we were playing, I would soak it with reverb and play parts that sounded more like a texture than rock chords or whatever.
Okay.
So you've got like the texture bass, the drum skeleton, and then the melody vocal over top of it. And I think that's why the drums are so prominent, because they were one of the key elements in the way that we write. It's like the ground floor of a building,
Okay. Yeah.
Brian adding Brian adding those effects really sort of takes the place of two people too. It sort of makes us sonically into a trio when we couldn't have one at the time.
Okay.
We didn't have one. But then when Dimitri got involved, that he did that with Brian. So then we sounded like four people. You know what I mean? Dimitri is a special talent as well. The way that he fills space and the way that he instinctually knows where Brian's going, or he figures out pretty quickly how to play off of what Brian is doing. And that is really the genesis of sort of this giving shape to abstract approach that we have right now. It really comes from those two playing together. And now having Andre and Patrick in the mix, they think that way too, on their contributions, on their instruments, on what they decide to approach, what they decide to play. And there is a real, what did I say yesterday? There's a real telepathy happening, and it's happening fast. That telepathy has always been Brian and me. We think a lot of ideas and thoughts, and even negative things. We think a lot at the same time. And a lot of times one of us brings it up. The other one's like, I was just going to say that, or I was just thinking about that. And it happens, and it's starting to spread among the others, That is so awesome. We're writing fast. We're writing really fast.
So you mentioned, oh shit, I don't remember what you mentioned, but I wanted to segue into something, and I don't remember exactly how I was going to do this, but the album, it's not a loud, bombastic album, but the way you end it is interesting, really interesting to me, because you ended on two quieter tracks, Wolf in Sheepskin and the short instrumental Olivet.
Mm-hmm.
I really like how it ends on a softer note. That's a little bit different from a lot of other bands who will try to end on this big flourish, and you guys just kind of, here we go.
Yeah, that big flourish you mentioned is spasmodic as a whole, but really towards the end, that's the big moment. But when you watch the end of a film that has a big moment, you have to have end credits.
Yes.
That's what we wanted to do. I mean, we talked about that.
That's awesome. I like that, because being a visual guy, I was a photographer for years. Being a visual guy, I love stuff like that. The very different approach that you guys have taken to creating this album, thinking of it more visually.
Mm-hmm. And we're taking that same approach to designing a live experience as well. We're going into that trying to be as thoughtful as we can from song to song, as far as representing each song slightly differently and putting you in a different visual space.
So
Absolutely.
what was all right, so I want to find out a little bit more about live shows before we start to wrap up, because I love live music. I love seeing bands live. I love seeing my guests on the podcast. When you guys, if you guys come to DC, count me in. I will definitely be there.
We need to play DC, man.
Oh, DC, awesome.
I reach out to you for that too.
Oh yeah, I would definitely do whatever I can to help you guys out, man.
Awesome. That's awesome.
The first gig as a 5-piece, what was that like? I mean, starting off with 3 of you or 2 of you, then Dimitri joining, and then suddenly you're at quintet. Was there some anxiety there, or was it just a natural progression at that point? Did you just feel comfortable on stage?
A little bit. I mean, there was a big build up. It was an event. It was a private event, and there were a bunch of artists on before us, so we really didn't know anyone. So there was a lot of pacing around backstage and plenty of time for nerves. And I think I was warming up and drinking tea for like 2 hours or something before we actually ended up going on. But it was fun. I mean, it was honestly, I feel like it went pretty smoothly for a first show. I was pretty concerned because like a couple of the songs were a little high at the time. And I had my voice, and I feel like I don't remember any train wrecks or anything. Shawn, do you?
No, in fact, it was a very good show. The sound was a struggle for us because we weren't used to hearing each other on a live stage where there's so much room in front of us. We write and demo our material here at my place. We have a loft in East Garfield that we work at, East Garfield Park. So you're used to hearing each other in that space, in those dimensions, in that proximity to each other. So adding monitors, adding 20 feet of ceiling space, adding a 500 capacity size room on a stage that's, floated a few feet up, it begins to change things.
Yeah.
So that was fun though, because that was the first push out of the nest at such an early part. This is it. This is the 5 of us doing it. Brian and I had been at it this long. This is what we worked for. We decided to make the record first. It's so important to emphasize that choice, that we formed the band while making the record. We didn't become a band, play some bars, put some money together, make a record of all the songs we've been working on. We're just doing that now.
Right.
But really it was intentional to keep a low profile, to limit output for right now. The things that we put out into the world are things that we believe in and things that we really want to feel pleased with aesthetically and purposefully. But at the same time, we knew that stuff had to start coming out more consistently.
Right.
So it was cool seeing that transition to full band. And then suddenly we're finally playing on a stage and really having a lot of fun, laughing and having a good time with each other in small private ways that we do. We laugh a lot. It's a fun band to be in. It really is, outside of like the writing these epic moments, But then it was the second show at Hideout, which really sort of set a direction. It set a seriousness. It set you know what? We need to get, this is going to go somewhere.
Wow.
We need to make this something that we put some real time in. We should care about our live show. And that was the first show where we took the venue space into consideration and we brought our own lights. We had them shut off all their lights in the whole place.
Oh, wow.
All their lights. Yeah, we turned off everything. Just literally unplugged it. Just turn it off.
Oh, that's
great. We sort of minimized the tone. We minimized the light. We minimized color. And it was cool. And we kind of we did some other things there visually too. I won't get into it, but each room that we play at, we try to slightly alter the way that room is usually perceived in a live experience. What they offer, unless it benefits the show, we tend to cut off what they provide and we bring our own thing. It's fun. It's really fun. And in the most minimum, we're not bringing like Van Halen fire and like champagne spitting out of the drum to feed people. You know, I don't even know if that ever happened, but you don't have that Tommy Lee cage around your drums where you can spin around 360.
No,
we've talked about that.
No, I wish I'd seen that.
Oh, I'm dying to see a live show. I cannot wait for you guys to come to the area because I just want to hear how the stuff sounds live. I love the record, but here I'm dying to hear it live because to me, with a good band, it'll sound even better live. And the album is so wonderful that I just can't wait to hear what you guys do with it live.
Awesome.
Knowing what you did with the Jeff Buckley song. So you guys set the bar pretty high with that. Did.
I love playing.
Practice and live up to it.
So are you going to, do you guys have a tour set up yet? Are you working on that? Are there possible dates in the future?
We're setting up dates right now. We've been setting it up each day for the last 2 months. It's a daily effort of checking in, but yeah, we are definitely planning dates right now. There's not much to announce. I think once we have everything set in place, I think then we'll start putting the word out, but we are going to have some dates going south, southwest, west.
Don't forget east. Friends, you got to come east.
Yeah, definitely.
There's going to be some we're looking forward to it. Needs to make sense.
Well, if I can help you out in any way, I'll point you to some pretty awesome venues in DC if you guys are heading this way. It's
absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll tell you right off the top of my head, I think you guys would crush at Union Stage.
I want to play there bad.
It's a sweet venue. Where can people follow the band and get updates on tours and music and buy the album, Motion and Pictures? Sure.
So vinyl will be ready by the summertime. We'll have LPs.
Nice.
Vinyl. And we'll be streaming everywhere. We'll have cassette. We'll have CD. We'll have digital download. So there are every way possible right now, except for vinyl on March 24th.
Oh, wow. Cassette still blows me away, man, that's coming back.
Yeah, and then really you can go to our Bandcamp. You can find us on social. It's pretty easy, but it's 2 I's. MIIRRORS.
Yeah. I'd say our Bandcamp, check that out for the music, and we'll be listing our live dates on Bandcamp as well.
Absolutely.
Good. Awesome. Well, guys, I know I've kept you for a while, but this has been a blast. I'm really thrilled that you guys agreed to come on because I've just loved this album. The first thing I heard was Gunshot Glitter, and after that I was like, I got to get these guys on. I'm hooked.
Man, thank you for your time.
Yeah, help us spread the word.
Thank you for putting the work in and actually listening to the music and doing some research. That's really awesome.
Stop kneeling, you mean it, and lift your voice just above a